All right, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining me for another explainer. Today we're taking a really focused deep dive into an absolutely brilliant concept. It comes straight from ancient philosophy, but honestly, it is profoundly relevant to our modern lives right now. We're talking about Stoic preparedness, and specifically the power of premeditating adversity. I'm so thrilled to unpack this with you guys because it literally flips how we typically handle stress and the unknown totally upside down. We're going to explore a mental framework that actually transforms our natural vulnerabilities into this unshakable sense of calm. So if you've ever felt just totally overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability of life, and let's be real, who hasn't, this explainer is going to equip you with a fascinating tool to completely change that dynamic. Let's get right to it.
How do we prepare for adversity? It's a pretty heavy question, isn't it? As humans, we have this deeply ingrained supernatural fear of unexpected challenges. We spend so much of our daily energy just kind of worrying in the background about what might go wrong. What if a sudden crisis completely upends my life? Or on a smaller scale, what if you spill coffee all over your laptop literally 5 minutes before the biggest pitch of your career? Usually we just push those thoughts away because, well, they're uncomfortable. We cross our fingers, we look the other way, and we just hope for the best. But I want you to pause and reflect on your own readiness for the unknown for a second. When we just hope bad things won't happen, we leave ourselves completely exposed to the shock of them actually occurring. We get caught totally off guard, and we react out of pure panic instead of moving forward with clarity. So, if ignoring the possibility of a disaster doesn't protect us, what actually does?
Okay, let's dive into this core concept. To solve this huge problem of unpredictable adversity, the Stoics developed a highly specific mental mechanism. And it's a total game changer. Instead of avoiding the thought of a difficult future, they lean directly into it. They realize that the shock of a negative event is actually often way more damaging than the event itself. Here is a wild, surprising fact for you. Ancient emperors and wildly wealthy philosophers would literally practice poverty for a few days every month. They'd eat scraps, they'd wear rough clothes, all just to strip away the shock of potentially losing their wealth. I mean, think about that commitment. The core idea here is about bridging that gap between the unexpected and the expected. It's mental conditioning. Just like an athlete trains their muscles for the physical strain of a marathon, we can train our minds for the emotional strain of life's inevitable hurdles. By deliberately interacting with the idea of adversity before it ever even strikes, we strip away its power to surprise us. Which brings us to the specific technique sitting at the absolute center of Stoic preparedness. To really grasp this, we need to introduce the formal term. I want you to just listen closely to this phrase, Premeditatio Malorum. It translates to the Stoic practice of premeditating adversity. Premeditatio Malorum. Letting the weight of that Latin phrase kind of linger for a second really underscores the gravity of the practice. It sounds intense, right? And it's absolutely meant to be. Now, this isn't about being randomly pessimistic or just constantly complaining about things. Actually, scratch that, it's the exact opposite. It is a highly intentional, structured exercise. It's the active, deliberate choice to sit down and vividly imagine the challenges, the losses, or the obstacles that could potentially disrupt your life. When we put this under our mental magnifying glass, we see it's not some fleeting, anxious thought that keeps you up at night. It's a formal, historical tool for building serious mental resilience.
Now, what's really interesting about this contrast is the stark difference between our two options. On one side, we have our modern default, fearing the worst. We all know this one. It's a chaotic, tangled mess that just paralyzes us. When we fear the worst, our minds spin totally out of control, our anxiety spikes, and we just feel completely helpless. It's passive. We basically become victims of our own unchecked imagination. But visualizing the worst, equipping yourself with a structured, rational shield, that is entirely different. It's an empowering, active strategy. When you visualize, you are in the driver's seat. You aren't just drowning in panic. You're rationally examining the scenario. You're sitting there asking, okay, if this terrible thing actually happens, what does it look like? What exact, literal steps would I take? One drains your energy and leaves you in a puddle of worry, while the other builds your mental armor. Let's break down how this active, deliberate exercise actually unfolds internally. First up, confronting the concept of adversity. You drop the denial. You look straight at the mountain in front of you. You explicitly acknowledge that yes, things can and will go wrong, and you refuse to look away from that reality. Second, engaging your mind. This is where the heavy lifting happens, and the gears in your brain really start turning. You block out time to mentally rehearse the difficult situation. You walk through the crisis in your mind's eye. You let yourself feel that initial friction, sure, but then you rationally process it, step by step. Finally, unlocking Stoic power. Because you've already experienced that worst-case scenario mentally, you unlock this profound resilient strength. If the bad thing actually happens in reality, you aren't destroyed by it. You've been there before in your head. You have the muscle memory, so you stay completely grounded.
This brings us directly to a key concept from our source material, the why behind visualizing the worst case. I mean, why go through all this trouble to imagine a disaster? Well, let's just talk about this conversationally for a second. Imagine you have a massive presentation coming up. If you just worry about it blindly, you're going to panic the second a single thing goes off script. But if you practice why the Stoics visualize the worst case, you sit down beforehand and you explicitly imagine the failure. You literally imagine the projector catching on fire. You imagine completely forgetting your own name in front of the CEO. You feel that initial cringe of disappointment, but then you plan. You figure out your backup strategies right then and there. The why is beautifully simple. It completely evaporates the element of surprise. You visualize the worst case so that absolutely nothing the world throws at you can ever catch you fundamentally unprepared.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact logical mechanism of how this works in practice. Step 1. Acknowledge the storm. You accept the reality of the situation without sugarcoating it, recognizing that, hey, those clouds are gathering on the horizon. Step 2. Visualize the worst case by drawing a map of the terrible terrain. You dive into the gritty specifics of the challenge, mapping out every single pothole and dead end of the potential disaster. Step 3. Achieve preparedness by packing the right tools. Because you meticulously mapped that terrain beforehand, you know exactly where the safe ground is and what you need to survive the trek. That abstract, paralyzing fear, it is completely replaced by a concrete, strategic, navigational plan. It's like having a cheat code for a crisis. So, why does all of this matter for you at the end of the day? Look, we live in an incredibly fast-paced, highly unpredictable world. Mental vulnerability usually comes from feeling exposed to the elements, like we have absolutely zero control over what happens next. But premeditating adversity builds a calm center right in the middle of the chaos. It transforms you from someone who is fragile and easily broken by unexpected bad news into someone who possesses a uniquely powerful state of calm. It's like standing peacefully inside a protective bubble while a storm is just raging completely around you. When everyone else is panicking because things didn't go according to plan, you're the one who remains steady. And you remain steady because you already factored the disaster into your plan weeks ago. The power of preparedness isn't about guaranteeing a perfect, stress-free life. It's about guaranteeing that no matter what life looks like, you're going to be highly capable of handling it with total grace and resilience.
Which leaves us with a final, pretty stark question to chew on. How will visualizing the worst bring out your best? I really want you to take this thought with you and actually apply it today. Think about an upcoming challenge, or maybe a nagging fear in your life right now. Instead of running from that anxiety, lean straight into it. Try the exercise of Premeditatio Malorum. Picture the absolute worst-case scenario as vividly as you can, and then ask yourself how your strongest, bravest, and most resilient self would handle it. You might just find that by intentionally staring directly into the dark, you discover exactly how much strength and capability you actually possess. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep preparing, and I will see you next time.